Kuki, you are back.
I am. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here. So let's get rolling with this episode. Kuki, I don't think any listeners of the podcast, they've seen you. You've been on here how many times now?
I think this is my third time.
All right. So you're a repeat visitor, and we talk about a lot of serious stuff. So we'll talk about some serious stuff today too, but let's also talk about some...
Not so serious stuff?
Yeah, if that's cool.
Sure. What did you do this weekend? No?
Actually... Later on, we're going to talk about what you did last weekend. It sounded like you had a heck of a trip.
Yes.
But first, let's stick in Nosara, and then we'll get back to your personal life and all that stuff. All right. So, Kuki, can you fill us in on what's the latest with the NCAA? It's been a very, very active 2019. Probably one of certainly the most active of your tenure as president. A lot of controversy, a lot of ups and downs, and I'm mainly referencing the regulations and whatnot. But the NCAA has more things going on than just that.
Yes, way more. As you know, we focus on 3 areas, which is beach protection, parkland protection, and community planning. And both 3 areas are working and moving along. And I think that, as you say, 2019 has been very, very busy. For me, it has been very cool to see how the community has responded. And I think that before there was more... maybe lack of knowledge about what the NCAA was doing or the organization in general. This is a 45-year-old organization that we're talking about. 2019, I think that most of the residents of Nosara know what the NCAA is now and also have a very clear position about it, that I'm hoping it's positive. And if it's not yet, I'm really sure that it will get there.
I'm sorry for laughing. That was just too funny. Let's start with community planning. That's the one people want to hear an update on. There's a lot of rumors circulating around. Could you tell us from your position and the NCAA's position what's happening with building regulations? Yes.
So when we talk about community planning, the big thing that we talk about is plan regulador, which I think that's the first thing that we have to be very clear.
Clarify again, just for anyone listening, what that means versus the temporary thing.
Exactly. So the plan regulador, it's basically it's a legislation by law. All cantons of Costa Rica should have a plan regulador. Not a lot of them have it because it's a complicated, long process that has to be spearheaded by the municipality, our local government, in our case, the municipality of Nicoya. And I think it was at the end of 2017 that I was joined the commission of Plan Regulador, the municipality of Nicoya, being appointed by the municipal council. So there's 7 people that form this commission. 2 people from the council, 2 people from the administration of the municipality of Nicoya, and 3 people from civil society. So I'm one of those 3 people from civil society. The commission has been working on advancing the Plan Regulador, that it's, as I mentioned before, it's long and it's also expensive.
Hey, I need to interrupt you right there before we forget the point. That's one of the rumors that circulate frequently around here, is that there's been so much focus on getting the temporary stuff pushed through that the actual plan regulador has been somewhat ignored.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying this
no,
as
and
a loaded question.
And I appreciate
I hear that. So while you brought it up, I want you to address that.
Yes, and thank you for asking, because I think that's very far from being correct at all. Sadly, as I've been learning, in government, everything moves slow. Way slower than I would actually want it to. But, it is what it is. And I think we just have to keep working on it. With the Plan Regulador, the municipality of Nicoya budget 40 million colones for last year and 40 million colones for this year. And just for you to get an idea, just one study for just one, like the hydrogeological study, that it's one of the studies that we have to have information for the whole canton. Just for the district of Nosara, that study could eat the 40 million colones. So, it's a matter of budgeting in order to be able to move even faster. And I think it's also a matter of how fast the administration of the municipality executes the agreements. So right now I have really good news in terms of the Plan Regulador. The municipality of Nicoya hired the National University of Costa Rica as what it's called the planning team. So this planning team includes sociologists, hydrologists, geologists, all kinds of experts that are the ones that have to do the different studies in order to come with a proposal that it's going to be socialized with all of the community when it's ready, when it's to the point. It took the administration of the municipality in Nicoya I want to say 8 months to be able to, from the moment that the council said, yes, we're going to hire the National University, to the moment that they were finally able to sign the contract and give the first payment for the National University to start working.
Well, hey, I have a bet going with Josue from when he came on this show, and he said 3 years. And I told him there's no way. And he's like, yep. And we argued about that, and we agreed to disagree. So how are we trending on this? Did they give any update on time frame for the...
I hope you prepare whatever you bet, because, the National University started working this week, finally.
I want to lose this bet, obviously, but I think government moves slow. I think this is a hotly contested issue. I think there's elections coming up. I think there's a lot of stuff going on, and there's a lot of confusion, and it also seems internal. And I'm not trying to step on anyone's toes here, but we've had a lot of public meetings that you guys have hosted, some other people have hosted. We've had more public meetings this year on this topic than I think anything I can think of, at least in my time here. And that last public meeting when the mayor came out, and when the other staff from Nicoya came out, and I don't even remember who else came out, it was incredibly inefficient. And I could even understand everything that was being said, and I completely could feel it and see that there's disconnects between those individuals.
Yeah.
I could just see the way they were looking at each other. Like there's a lot of internal stuff going on in Nicoya. We're not going to unravel that right now. But what I'm getting at is that kind of dashes my hopes of a quick turnaround on a planned regulador if there's not a lot of cohesion. So I guess that's my thoughts on it. So I'm not holding my breath for 3 years, but I hope to goodness that
it moves forward.
Well, yeah, and you're saying that is happening.
Yes. I mean, the National University started working this week. They're meeting with the different government institutions that are in Nicoya to gather information. They will also be coming to Nosara at some point, and there will be all, identify. I think that there's going to be the municipality is going to be doing some post about the...
Oh, like a badge.
The badge, yeah. There will be, all have a badge so that people can know that what they're doing. And it's moving along. That's moving along. Also, the phase 1 of the hydrogeological study for Nosara has been approved by Senara, which is the government institution that has to approve it. And the phase 1 for the hydrogeological study for Nicoya downtown has also been submitted to Senara, and it's now in the process of being approved. So things are moving along. I think that,
well, hey, that's
it's
good
just
to hear.
Slow.
Hey, do you want to double down and make the same bet with me? Three years from today?
I'm with Josue all the way, of course.
All right.
Especially because I don't want to be in the commission forever. Like, I know we'll get it done.
Yeah, this isn't fun, Cookie, getting in the middle of a bunch of fights and all that?
Oh, gosh. No, I don't want to fight. I really don't want to fight.
Well, you signed up to fight, and that's what you're going to get if you're president of the NCAA, because you're an environmental organization in a quickly developing town, and there's a lot of confusion here. There's a lot of confusion. That's one thing I've learned this year. There's a lot of well-intended people who are fighting with other people who actually should not be fighting with other people, but they don't know it. I started to make a graph, and I pulled it down. I was about to post it. I was like, hey, here's what you should be angry about, because there's multiple camps. There's some people who are like, do nothing, and there's other people, do everything, and there's people who are in the middle, do some of it, and that's kind of been the dialogue, right?
Yeah.
I've just noticed how interesting it is. A lot of the people, they're actually arguing against people they kind of agree with, and they don't know it.
Yeah.
And then some people, they think they agree with them, but they actually are really far apart. It's a very complicated onion.
I think you have a great point. I mean, I will say it again. I don't want to fight, but that doesn't mean that I'm not open to acknowledging that there's people that are going to think different that I do, and I am also okay with conversations and communications as long as they can be respectful. So if we can have an honest, mature conversation where we never lose respect to each other, it's okay if you think different than I do. That always happens. I'm married. It always happens. So let's do it. I'm open, and I'm pretty much available to talk with anybody who wants to talk. And if they have questions, by all means, come ask them. Like, I'll respond.
Would you be interested or willing to do like an open forum discussion at some point in time?
Yes.
Like if we had, like if we called it together and I like moderated it and we had like an actual open, real discussion.
I can do that.
That might be a good idea at some point.
Yes, totally. I can do that.
There were times where I might have thought that was a bad idea.
Oh my God. Like if somebody has a better idea than I do, by all means, like I think that's when you get the richest results, when you're able to have different people go over in a situation and kind of build up from that together.
So let's move into Parklands. What's the latest updates that you have for that?
So on Parklands, one of the hottest things I think at the beginning of this year was the negotiation with Custodia de Propiedad Guanacastecas. So
yeah, how's that going?
Right now we're waiting. Again, we're in the hands of the government. So the two parts, the NCAA and Custodia de Propiedades, agreed on the properties that were overlapped. That there were 6 out of the 33 properties that the Nosara Civic Association owns that were overlapped. We found an agreement that I think pleased both parts, and now it's in the hands of topographers and lawyers and in the hands of the National Registry of Costa Rica that has to approve the new planos in order to be able to move forward. So we're waiting on that.
Kuki, one of the things I think that got overshadowed this year was what you just referenced. The Richmond Phipps thing from the day I showed up was like, hey, there's this evil lady who's taking over and it's this huge fight. And then there was the other side. And then there were people like, no, she's not that bad. Wait, she's actually right. And she is the evil side. Like there was always this big, huge kind of war building up. And it was like this weird, it was like the dark cloud over us for the longest time. And I think they deserve credit. And I think you deserve credit. Despite whatever's happened in the past, it's really impressive how much progress you guys made. Mm-hmm. Because when I came in, it was like these people are enemies forever. And you guys, despite whatever your difference may be, you made a lot of progress. So I want to just thank you. I want to thank them. And I want to remind the community that, hey, this big, huge, horrible thing might actually have a decent ending. Like, is that really true? Yeah,
I mean, I hope that's the case. And I have to say, well, when I came to the NCAA, I never got the chance to meet Richmond Phipps, actually. I remember seeing her one time. I think it was in an ASADA meeting. That was the only time, and she passed away soon after that. And I have to give a lot of the credit to her daughter, Brooke Shields, who was the one who kind of decided to try to solve the situation and knew that she didn't want to live all her life like with this in her back. So she very proactively approached all the different people. I think there were like 90 different properties that had overlaps with her property, and she approached all of them one by one. One of them was the NCA with several properties, 6, as I mentioned before, and she really tried to hold good negotiations. And I think that at the end of the day, what it's important is to understand that this was something that it was not, it wasn't either Brooke's fault or it wasn't NCA's fault. This is something that now we know it's actually a very common problem in all of Costa Rica, which is the fact that many years ago, the way that properties were titled and inscribed in the register was not the best way. So, you have a lot of overlaps, and you have properties that maybe don't match what's on paper, the physical reality, those kinds of things. And that's what we're trying to address at this point.
Well, it seems like you're almost done. Or getting close.
Yes, right? I think with the NCA, that's like a woo.
Well, anyway, I'm just trying to find a bright light after a pretty challenging year. That's phenomenal. So shout out to them and to you guys. So thank you.
Thank you.
On behalf of the community.
We have now 2 workers that are going around all the properties. We've been moving along with fencing and just addressing situation with different neighbors. We're talking about properties that haven't been fenced or really that well overseen for the last 10 years or something. So there has been some hiccups along the way, but I'm happy to say that I think that as long as there's good communications, we've been able to solve all of these situations with our neighbors in an amicable way.
How are the trails going?
The trails, now that it stopped raining, are starting to look really good. We have been working for over a year now in new trail signage, and I'm super happy to say that the prototype of the new trail sign, we installed the first one. And of course, because it's a prototype, after we did it, we saw a couple of things that need to be corrected. But I'm really hoping that in the next weeks, we can have the first signs that are going to go 6 different trail entrances. So we're not doing all the trails yet, but we're putting the signage that it's hopefully going to help people navigate the trails better. And one of the goals that I would call a new project that we're trying to address is that Nosara, there's this index called the Social Progress Index that was developed in England, and Costa Rica adopted it through INCAE, which is a business school in San Jose. INCAE estimated the Social Progress Index for all the cantons of Costa Rica, all the 82 cantons of Costa Rica. And then they also did it for some touristic areas, including Nosara. So now we know what is our social progress index for Nosara. It's great data, and we have to.
Can you share what are we good and bad at?
We're kind of in the middle. The top in social progress index of destinations in Costa Rica are like La Fortuna and Monteverde.
Okay.
And we're kind of in the middle. That's where we are. One of the things that we scored the lowest was mobility. So how easy it is for people to go from one place to another in Nosara.
We had to have gotten the lowest possible score that there is.
And in the public buses, there's really not that many. So, you either got the bus at 7 in the morning or the next one is at noon or something like that. Or, and then the last one is at 5 p.m. And after that, you can go to Nicoya on public transportation. So that has been on my mind for a while and in the mind of several other NCAA members and just community members in general. And we've been playing with this idea of how can we move from Guiones all the way to Nosara town without going on the main road. That we know now that if the project of pavement of the main roads keeps moving forward, there's no room for bicycle lanes or sidewalks on that, Route 160. So
a lot of us are scared about that because as soon as the road just got graded a little bit and
people are already speeding.
I got passed like 15 times by bikes and quads and cars and everyone's flying and I'm really scared.
Yeah. Please don't do that. There's so much wildlife going across the street. Like, it's so important to go slow.
On behalf of the wildlife for the Pizzotis, quick tip, we should tell people, if you see one...
Stop, because there's more.
There's more coming.
Yeah.
It's never just kind of one cruising around.
Yes.
There's a whole bunch of them.
There's an area between the entrance to the Bodhi Tree and Café de Paris. Between there's parkland on both sides of the road. And I always see pisotes going across there. So that is one of the areas that please don't speed there because they're always going across. And we are working together with the Refuge for Wildlife, Brenda Bomber's Refuge for Wildlife, the Stop the Shocks programs, MOPT and ISE into putting bridges for monkeys, but we're also going to be putting signage, hopefully when the time is ready, like MOPT has been open to that, saying where there is pedestrian, like wildlife crossings, so that people can slow down when they get to.
If I could ask you to add in one more thing, a big fat speed bump, whenever the time's right, before you get to Organico, because people come down 160 and they hit that straightaway, they speed up. And
I have asked about that.
There's kids everywhere right there.
What the guys from MOPT told me is that speed bumps, they can only put them close to schools. That's what they told me. So there's probably going to be speed bumps around the Esperanza school and the soccer field when it's paved. I was really bummed to hear about that. And I think that we can look more into it. I mean, we have to be able to get them. This is a buffer zone of a protected area of the Austinal Wildlife Refuge. So, hopefully with some sort of advocacy in there, like they can understand that.
This is real human life. There's kids walking from Cafe Paris to across the street to the new Welcome Center in Coconut Harry's and Organico, like nonstop.
I mean, I think that with data and if everything is very well demonstrated, like we can say how many people are going through there. We'll see. I mean, we have to address that when they start putting the pavement, which
either way, I want to go
frankly,
on
at this
saying,
point, they haven't even budgeted the pavement yet, which is...
but in front of the Gardens Hotel, that area, that's a very dangerous curve.
Yes.
Something to slow that down.
Oh my God, so many cars go on that ditch all the time.
People are getting hit. It's not any fun.
Going back to the trail. So the idea is using the NCAA Parklands and using the river dike. That if you look at it, it's such an eyesore, but it almost looks like that could be a bicycle lane. So how can we do that? And we're just starting with the idea and we're going to form a committee. There's some people who have expressed their interest of being part of this committee. There's places also in Costa Rica. There's this great project called Rutas Naturbanas in San Jose, where they are building trails for bicycles and for pedestrians alongside the rivers of San Jose that are very contaminated. But, in Costa Rica, the rivers have Retiro.
Oh, a setback.
The rivers have a setback of 50 meters. So those 50 meters are public. And that's where they're putting this trail. So I want to go with our committee and see what is the design, what are they doing. I know there's also an elevated trail in Santa Rosa National Park that they did. So I think we can see from what people have already been doing and try to put something similar here in Nosara so that we can improve our mobility.
Well, hey, that's super encouraging because the lack of bike paths and walking paths, it's something, it's a distinct issue.
And we just need people to know more about them. I have a good friend that has been here for living in Nosara full year for for like a year now, but coming for like the last 5 years. And he didn't know about the trail that goes between Nomadic and Pacifico Azul to kind of where Wanderlust is. And every time he needed to do that, he will go on the road or all the way down to the beach. I was like, how...
People still do that.
Yeah, that is one of the most used ones. But so yeah, we need more people to use the trails, and in order to have that happen, we need them to make it easier for them to use them.
Yeah, that's a good point. It seems like the good news is there's a lot more happening on the trail stuff than I had realized, and I think people will be happy to hear that.
Yes, there's so much more things happening.
All right, so let's move over to the refuge, and I'm not being mean or negative here. I'm just being honest. I think there's a lot of confusion when it comes to the refuge. And I think there's a lot of well-intended, actually you could kind of say this about all of Nosara. I think there's a lot of well-intended people who are trying to make a difference and stand up for nature and the environment, but they might not fully understand the situation.
Yes.
Could you provide a little bit more clarification as well to what the refuge is and what you guys are up to, and then the circumstances kind of surrounding that?
Yes. So it's important to understand that the Ostional Wildlife Refuge, it's a protected area designated by the Costa Rican government, right? So in Costa Rica, there's several degrees, to call it in some sort of way, of protection that you can have within the national park systems, right? So 25% of Costa Rica is protected under the national park system in any sort of level. It could be a national park, which is the top levels of protection. It could be a refuge like the one we have here. It could be forestry reserve. It could be a zona protectora like in Ojancha in Monte Alto, where the Nosara River is born. So there's different levels.
I'll just stop right there. I don't think people understand that there were different levels. They just come outside of their house and see someone cutting something down, and it's like, oh, that's in the refuge. This, just like so many other things here, this is a complicated.
It is, and I understand. I mean, it's even complicated for me that I work on these things to kind of get it all going. The Ostional Wildlife Refuge, it's kind of exactly matches what it's called the maritime zone, which is the 200 meters from the high tide line inland. Those 200 meters, it's what it's here, the Ostional Wildlife Refuge. Right? And it includes the beaches of Ostional, Nosara, then there's a river mouth, then there's Pelada, and then there's Guiones. All those 4 beaches are part of the Ostional Wildlife Refuge. And it's managed by the government, by SINAC, and their guard station is in Ostional. So the role of the NCAA is that we have been like an ally for the management of the Ostional Wildlife Refuge, especially helping them connect with the reality of what's going on in the beaches of Guiones and Pelada, because they have been very disconnected into what's going on in Ostional. To give you an example, I mean, in Ostional, September and October, there's a phenomenon that it's like the second place in the world where olive ridley turtles comes to lay their eggs all together at the same time. Scientists still don't know why they all align themselves to come around the new moon, but they do. Those 2 months, there's nobody in Guiones and Pelada. Those are the super dead low season. And then, we have this amazing phenomenon happening here, and somehow the tourism sector in this area are not connecting to that. And that is an economic problem as well, because we have a lot of businesses that close during 2 months and people are jobless during those 2 months. So there's an opportunity there. So how can we have better communication in order to be able to capitalize on that, and also do a smart use of the beach, which the reality is that most of the people that come here come because of the beach, and the beach is protected. So, as we mentioned before, there's much more people coming. How do we make sure that the impact that we as humans are having on the beach are not affecting the wildlife in the area? And that's kind of where we are. Ostional has been having a lot of changes. In 2017, they approved a new law that basically recognized the existence of a community or several communities within the park. The park was created, or the refuge was created in 1985. In 1983, and was extended to include Pelada and Guiones in 1985. Before that, there were already people living in Ostional, and there were already people living in Pelada. And once that was declared as a refuge, as a protected area, they were kind of like in limbo. It's like, okay, so what does that mean? Like, for at some point, they thought that they would have to leave their houses, get out of the 200-meter strip, and go live somewhere else.
It's like 2 contrasting laws, essentially. One to protect people who've been there, and then others to enforce the municipality, or not the municipality, the maritime.
Yes.
And they're kind of colliding as to what was going on, and that was the purpose for this adjustment a couple years ago in 2017 to the mixed.
Yes, and I think that something really cool that Ostinal has been able to do is that they have this program where they are being allowed to take out some of the eggs that the turtles are laying, because there's so many eggs that they go go to waste, and this has been done under the supervision of the Ministry of Environment and with the support of the national of the UCR, Costa Rica University, their biology department. They have been given an exemption in the International Turtle Convention. So that Ostinal is the only place that it is allowed to do that, because they have been able to scientifically prove that the fact that they're taking out their eggs, it's actually increasing the chances of exclusion, or the eggs coming to become turtles. So that in there you can see that you don't only have two options, which are conservation or use, that seems so polarizing. The reality is that you can have in some sort of way both, as long as you use them in a sustainable way, which is what Ostinal is doing.
That's a really interesting point, Cookie. Conservation and exclusion. Yeah, geez, I'm digesting a lot. I'm here, so I just kind of accepted it. I'm used to it. But as I'm thinking about on a broader scale, blending the two, it actually worked, and it's working.
It's what we have to do. I think that kind of concept of human being separated from nature or dominant over nature is what have us all in this kind of predicament that we are right now with global change.
Well, then also the answer for a lot of people is forget the human part and the realities that are behind that, and start beating a drum of stop everything. And that's not realistic. Especially here, that happens a lot, and it's frustrating, especially for me. I'm in the middle on so much of this stuff, because it's I understand people are coming here. They want to come here. They legally can. There's properties to buy. They can build. You're not going to stop that. No. And trying to stop it is, in my opinion, a very, very poor use of resources, of time and energy, because it's not realistic. So fighting a fight that's impossible to stop, I think, is dumb. I think what we should do is focus on what we have control over, what we can change, and do it as best that we can.
I think Nosara is in a very privileged place where we can, we are right there, at the point where we can really show, and we have all the minds that we can do things differently. We can do them differently, and there it has to be like that. I listened to a TED Talk about this man, Alan Savory, that was so interested, and he was talking about how in Africa he was trying to protect some land, and what he was is we got to take out all the animals, and the moment that he took out all the animals of the land, it actually became a desert. So, this desertification process happened. And now, going back and realizing that there's a role for animals to play in the conservation, there's a role for humans to play as well. We just have to find that balance. And I think that, in Nosara, we still have enough green where we can do that. And I think that most of the people are kind of believing that they can do something like that. I hope you believe that too.
What I find refreshing is that you said that we still have a lot of green, and Nosara is in a very good position. What gets a little old to me, and again, this is probably because I have a podcast and I talk about all this stuff all the time, so people come up and approach me about it, but it's over. It's all gone. The beauty's all lost. I'm really tired of hearing that, because I could not disagree more.
Yeah,
I can't think of any town, not just in Costa Rica. I can't think of almost anywhere that has green areas literally interrupting the entire community, preventing wide-scale development. Please tell me that's doing better than we are. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah,
I'd really love to hear it, because I'm just kind of tired of the anger and the sentiment. I know it's well intended, but it's not realistic. And when it's like whenever you have super polarizing opinions, it's really hard to get anything done. So if you're really over here or really over here, you're going to lock up. And that's kind of like the States. I'll pick on my home country where I'm from. You have a left and a right, Democrat, Republican. As soon as you meet someone, it's which side do you believe? And you automatically make up your mind.
Yeah, and you're shut.
There's no middle thing. I think the stuff that you've been going through and the community's going through very much needs middle ground. And I actually think that is the solution. And that's kind of something you indicated earlier. Ostinal is a good example. Who would have thought that commerce and letting the local people actually take the eggs were going to help the eggs? It worked. Maybe there's a way we could do that here with what we're doing, because, again, I'm going to get yelled at for this, but I'm going to say it anyway. There's so much living hypocrisy here. And a lot of your supporters, I'm one of your supporters. I'm a member of the NCAA, and we're all already here.
Yeah.
But we're here, but we're real quick to talk about everyone else and all the people coming in and block them and stop this and stop that as you're sitting in your house.
I laugh when people complain about construction noise. I'm like, oh my God, please share with me, how did you build your house that was noiseless? Because at some point you built a house too, and now you're complaining because your neighbor is building a house.
Right. So if people were like, hey, listen, I'm already here. I've had my impact. I admit that. I just want to improve the place. But when it goes into yelling mode, anger, and saying these outlandish things as they sit inside of their house that was built, trees were cut down to build that house, it's like, hold on a second.
And I think also, Rich, that we're focusing too much on the bad. There's people who maybe are not aware of the environment, but let's focus on the good. There's people who are. So I think that if we start as a community sharing the great projects, I know of a house that since they started building it, I think it was around K section. What a beautiful project. They did this, they built it all in steels and it's all around the trees. So you can build a beautiful house and be surrounded by nature. So those are the kinds of projects that instead of going and complain about the ones that we don't like, let's celebrate the ones that we like and start giving them more putting them out there in social media. This is what Nosara is about.
Well, hey, again, shout out to the hotels, because people like to say the big mega hotels. We don't have a mega hotel here. The Harmony's not a mega hotel. The Bodhi Tree's not a mega hotel.
No,
Lagarda Lodge, even with all the stuff it dealt with, is not a mega hotel. Lagarda Lodge has a tree in its restaurant. Las Verdes is a LEED certified hotel. The Surf Simply project, LEED certified. The Harmony has went through great efforts to do a lot of stuff. Bodhi as well. You guys are all diehard competitors, and you all linked up for a trash initiative. That was phenomenal. I think we should start talking about that stuff a lot more too. Exactly.
And all these hotels that you mentioned, the Gilded Iguana as well, they all have treatment plans. Oh. They're all the ones who are sponsoring.
The Gilded takes a lot of heat. They did a lot of things right. I mean, a lot of things right. And I'm not saying that because I'm affiliated with them in any way. I'm not. But I'm saying their water donation, just they recycled what they could. They really did a lot of things right. So,
and Veronica, who works for them, she's the president of the Recycling Association.
She's awesome.
And these are the hotels that are kicking us in terms of separation. They're the ones who are recycling and having all the separation. They do composting. They're the ones who produce the most trash, but they're also the ones who are managing in the best way, I have to say.
Well, hey, this is good. We're talking about the good stuff because we're surrounded by all the arguing and bickering over other things, but it is good to stop for a moment and celebrate the wins.
Yes.
We still have green areas. We still have parklands. The Richmond Phipps thing didn't turn into taking over all the land between Guiones and Pilata. I've heard so many people come and tell me there's a mega 5 or 10 story resort being built between Pilata and Guiones that's slated. I don't think that's true. I think you would know.
I don't know. You only know what you know, right? I guess.
Actually, I guess I don't really know anything. So let me backtrack on all that. I have no clue what I'm talking about. There might be mega resorts coming in, but I don't think so.
I don't think so either. And I think I would be surprised if an investment didn't do their homework and realize that Nosara is not about that. That's not what Nosara is or wants. And this is a green town. This is a place where people enjoy the beach. It has also become into more of a family environment with all these great schools that we have. I will be shocked if somebody wants to come and invest in something that it's so different through what this place has been trying to position itself.
I agree with you. And just the permitting, the time frame to get the water, to get all that would be astronomical cost. It just doesn't make any sense for an investor to do that. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't know that. They just think Nosara is popular, so Ritz-Carlton's coming in. It's not necessarily like that. Nosara has a lot of built-in mechanisms, mainly are green areas, that prevent anything widespread. And you can't come in and do anything big. And the temporary building regulations you're saying are not affecting the overall Plan Reguladora, which is refreshing news. And if we have the Plan Reguladora, as you and Josue now are betting me on 3 years, then we're actually in pretty darn good spot. As we talk, let's focus on the positive things for sure. So which I want to share with you one more thing, and it has to do with the dump. I don't know if you were aware, but now that the dump has been closed, the municipality of Nicoya is taking the trash. We have to deal with the fact that we have a bunch of old trash just sitting online, uncovered within the forest, in an area that we know now,
thanks to the hydrogeological study that it's close to a recharge area for our aquifer. So that is something that has been going on in the minds of everybody who works in from the Recycling Association and from the NCAA. The NCAA, it's the owner of the land where the dump is. It was part of the donation of land that we got. I think it was back in 2004 when we got the donation of land from Amigos de Nosara, how NCAA kind of owned all these parklands. And we were able to establish this contact with the University of Florida, the Gators. I know there's a couple of Gators in town. We have their students here helping us, thankfully. The environmental department, they have a program called the Capstone Project where their professor takes students to different Latin American countries to kind of have hands-on experience in real situations in communities. So these people came, I think it was back in September, and they're helping us establish what is the best route to take in order to be able to make or neutralize the hazard that at this point is right now the dump. We analyzed two options. One is to be able to cover with an impermeable, probably clay, to cover the trash and monitor it for at least 20 years to make sure that there wasn't any contamination on the underground water. The second option is to take out all the trash.
And those are two very hotly contested schools of thought, because I've had some engineer people explain to me when you remove the dump, it's a far worse environmental catastrophe because you get everything moving and it gets into the water supply, yada, yada. And then I've also had people say, no, you can move dumps. It's just you have to do it the right way. Well, so what's your policy on all that?
This is, we've been discussing it a lot, the board and kind of this committee that we have that has been interested in helping. And I have to say thank you to all the people who have get involved, Nick McAlpin, Vitas and Elizabeth, Carlos Araya, all of them have been to a certain point involved in this project.
Is everyone unified and remove it or cover it? Or
we need to remove it. And the reason we need to remove it, it's because the trash, when it was first placed in there, it was not lined. So there's nothing to protect all that trash that has been compacted and it's kind of soaking with all the rain from the underground water. And we also know that that is a fragile area for recharge for our aquifer. So what we are looking at it right now is to see how much it would cost to remove it. And I'm going to be very honest, the NCAA doesn't have the money to remove all this trash. I mean, we're preliminarily talking about probably over $1 million. But while the students were here doing their first visit, they were able to establish contact with the landfill of Santa Cruz, which is likely where we would have to put the trash. That's a proper landfill with all the permits. They said, yes, they'll take the trash. They started talking with different transportation options, and they're going to be coming in December. The 10th of December, we're going to have a public meeting that we're going to be announcing soon in the afternoon to give us the best option, based on their technical knowledge and also the approximate cost of it. And our goal is that once we have that very clear, we can start going out there. I'm hoping that the municipality of Nicoya will get involved. I'm hoping that we can have the national government get involved, especially if there is really a way where we can see that our water could be, under threat. I'm sure that they will be involved. We're looking into also having hopefully international donors as well so that we can get all the trash out. But the first thing is to know how much it would cost. Yeah, I'm really excited about that.
Just to have momentum, that's very positive.
And then the other thing that has me really excited is that I had recently an NCAA board member, no, not board members, just an NCAA member approached me about starting a climate change commission for the Nosara community under the NCAA.
Then what does that mean? So
what it means at this point is we're looking into the community of Monteverde that has an organization called Corclima that for me has been very inspiring, and they're talking, this organization is about resilience against climate change. And I think that the first thing to know is to get good solid data. In Corclima in Monteverde, what they did is that they were able to estimate their carbon footprint as a community. And so once you know how much from what areas it's producing the most carbon, and then you can start addressing that situation to try to be carbon neutral by or even carbon negative, which would be even more positive, right? Like we are sequestrating more carbon that we're putting out there by a date. So we're just starting, and this is and actually, kind of putting it out there. If you are passionate about climate change, you have knowledge about it, and you want to join this commission, please reach out, because we're just starting. I think that a good way to start is having our carbon footprint estimated for the community. And it's what's most crucial and I think most important as humanity at this point. To go back to what you said at the beginning, last week I attended the CRUSA, which is the Foundation, Costa Rica USA Foundation. They are doing these awards of the Crusader of the Year. And they invite different nonprofits and just organizations that they work with. And, the NCAA gets a lot of its funds through CRUSA. Amigos de Costa Rica. A lot of the nonprofits here in Nosara do that. And so I attended the Crusader Award ceremony that was in San Jose on Monday last week. And it was so impactful for me because Cristiana Figueres was there. This woman, she's a Costa Rican, and she was the one who directed the Paris Agreement a couple of years ago. So she was working with the UN, and she was named one of the 10 most influential women's for the year. I think it was last year by Time Magazine. And she was just amazing and so refreshing to hear too. Like, I'm very passionate about climate change, and I'm constantly doing research about it and reading about it. But Cristiana, the way that she spoke about it, it was so clear. And for me, like, people tend to go around the bushes with this kind of information because it's very troubling. I think it was last week that we had like 1,100 scientists coming out saying about what are we facing to. And Cristiana just said it so easily. She said, we're about to go into the most important decade of humanity, from 2020 to 2030. By 2030, we, humanity, need to have reduced our carbon footprint to 50%. That's it. If we don't achieve that by 2030, it doesn't matter what we do, there's not going to be kind of a way back, because the amount of carbon that we're putting up in the atmosphere, it's going to be so much that we're going to start seeing, we're already seeing it, like Australia is having incredible fires right now. In Costa Rica, we're talking that, Guanacaste might become a desert. We already had 14% less rain already this year, it's going accordingly to what was foreseen by the Meteorological Institute. Is that a word? I just made it up.
Pretty good.
Thank you. That's hard. 15% less rain we're already seeing. We're talking about the Caribbean coast being completely flooded. And the way she said it, she basically said, we're talking about basically all the tropic area between the Tropico de Cancer and Tropico de Capricornio becoming land that won't be livable. So all the people that live between those two tropics are going to have to migrate either to the north or to the south. Okay,
so I'm good and scared. I'm waiting for like the happy part of this.
I know. That's exactly how I felt during her speech, and how I could see everybody look. I knew that already, but I could see people being like, whoa, like she was like, this is it. That's nothing. If by 2030, we don't cut our carbon footprint by half. And I think that it's easy to say like, oh my God, yeah, the government has to cut the carbon footprint. Everybody, we all have a carbon footprint that we need to cut. So I think that if Nosara can start analyzing their carbon footprint and see how we can do, she said something really good. She said that we're doing good in some things and we're not doing that good in other things. As a humanity, because Costa Rica is only 5 million people. So we really, if Costa Rica becomes carbon neutral, as we have claimed that we want to do, the actual impact of it, it's not going to be that much. The impact comes from showing that it can be done, right?
It's a model.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So she said, what is the world doing good in terms of reducing their carbon footprint by 2030 in 50%? Energy. 25% of the world's energy is already being produced in some sustainable way, either, wind or solar. So it seems like we're in track to by 2030 just be, down by 50%. The financial systems, financial markets, already people are moving out from investing, for example, in gas and oil and moving into investing in green technology. So that is going a long way. And electrical vehicles, which cars are one of the biggest producers of CO2. By next year, it is expected that the price of an electric car and a fossil fuel car will be the same. So it will be easier to do the change. In Costa Rica, we only have right now, we have a couple of options for electrical vehicles, but they're all small. And with our roads, unfortunately, I don't think we can have them here. So I don't
think one would make it from Samara to here now.
Oh, well, yeah, because they're smaller than the holes, for sure.
They can't get over the holes.
But once we got those...
Sorry, bad joke.
We'll have it. So anyways, we're doing good in those three things. In what we're not doing good, forests, the world's still losing its forests. We also recently saw how the Amazon was being severely burned. Costa Rica, it's, way up the curve in that. We have, 25% of the country protected in some sort of official way and a lot more in private ways. We're not doing good in agriculture, and we're not doing good in soils. So those are kind of the three areas where we need to put our attention to. The way that we're eating. The other day, somebody told me, it's like, who would thought that it was smart to put poison in your food before eating it? Like, right, when you put all these agrochemicals.
That's Costa Rica's one of its biggest challenges.
And that's Costa Rica's one of the biggest challenges. You're right. You know, we have a very high per capita use of agrochemicals. It is super. And actually, in that meeting, the first lady was there. And it was very cool to see how Cristiana, in a very polite way, said, like, you know, Costa Rica just launched a decarbonization plan at the beginning of this year. And it's great and it's good that we're making our statement. But that plan is kind of focusing in the easiest things in some sort of way, which are the things that are already moving forward. We need to focus in the hard things, like agriculture, for example. So anyways, I kind of took it to the other side, but for me, that was very eye-opening. And I'm very excited if we can form our climate change committee for Nosara. And if anybody is interested to join, please do.
Here's what would be interesting for me. If the climate change committee found a way to do kind of what they did in Oceanal. I'm going back to the analogy of, in order to protect the turtles, the people are harvesting the first round of the turtles. You found a way to make something work.
Sustainable use, yeah.
Right. If the climate change committee can unify, say, your most ardent developer in addition to your most ardent environmentalist to work together in a cohesive manner to make progress, then I think that would be an ultimate success of the climate change committee. Like, for example, if it's a carbon footprint, we get a number. Well, that number doesn't matter your political beliefs or fiscal.
It's just a number, yeah.
It's just a number. So everyone can point towards something. And that's really interesting to think about. Like, that's pretty cool, because let's go back to cutting down trees, because we have monkeys here, we have wildlife. That's a big reason why people come here. But at the same time, people are coming here and getting position and then cutting down the trees, right? Well, we have pretty strong replenishment efforts in Nosara compared to most places. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I'm saying it's way better here than most places. And if we step that up a couple notches, we can have way more trees than we ever have.
Yeah.
Like that can happen. So I don't want people to lock up and argue about like what's going on. I'd rather like, let's get busy getting the solution out.
Yes, I 100% agree. And, you know, as we said a little bit before, like we have the power to decide what we focus on. And I've constantly have this quote around my head. This guy, Bucky, I think he was his name, and he passed a long time ago. But anyways, he said, you don't have to fight the system. You just have to create a new system that makes the old one obsolete. And I think that's where we can focus on right now. Like, Nosara has the capacity, you know, the environmental capacity, the natural capacity, and the people's capacity to be something really cool. And you know, let's work on that.
What are the 3 or 4 or 5 things that people who live here can do? Because right now, a lot of people just hop on social media, and you already know my take on social media, bitching and moaning. Being a keyboard warrior is not really a warrior.
Yeah, you know what? I think that's a great point. There's so many great ideas. What we need is more manpower. People who are willing to do the work. And you know, that means drafting letters, writing proposals. There's grants, there's funds, there's so many things. Frankly, we're, you know, at the NCAA, we're being able to move forward because we take the time to do that. Like, I write proposals. We have, you know, Francisco, we have a crew now. We have a board that is very engaged, that it's taking the time to do those things. We could do much more if there's more people who are willing to kind of get away from the computer and, you know, go into the real world where we need hands-on.
I thought it was just
on
like,
the dirt to work.
Let's go plant trees. Like,
yeah, even, you know, like, what can people do? Volunteer. Come on, volunteer. You know, we have so many people coming now to the recycling center on Thursday, which is the volunteer day.
Hey, super quick touch on Metamorphosis. Can you explain that in like 30 seconds?
Sure. So Metamorphosis is a project that came, that was proposed to the Recycling Association by Angie Miranda from Surf Pacific and Mantarraya.
Shout out to Angie.
Angie, yeah, great. Thank you for that. And she connected us with this great artist, Francesco Bracci. And Francesco has been known in Costa Rica for doing these art installations that usually use materials that have been deemed to be waste before. And so the idea is that we want to bring more attention to the recycling center and how important it is to separate your trash. 50% of what goes into the trash is organic, that you don't even need to send. You can just compost at home and have, enrich your soil, which is also good. 30% is recyclable and only 20% is non-recoverable. Of course, what we would want to do is it's produce less waste. And something that kind of got stuck into my head was I saw this movie called Wasted, this documentary that was really cool with Anthony Bourdain. Mm-hmm. And a head of lettuce that goes to the dump, instead of being composted, can take up to 20 years to decompose in the dump. So it's insane. You might think it's like, oh, but it's, it's organic food. It's like, leftovers from my meal. I'll send it to the dump and it will. No. If it doesn't have the good process of composting that has, it's an aerobic process. You need to move once in a while your compost in order to have air go into it. If you just send all your organics without separating it, it can take many years to decompose. So waste management is so important here in this community and all in Costa Rica. So the whole idea of Metamorphosis is to bring more attraction about the importance of separating. So we're going to be doing some installations that are going to be created by the community. So Francesco kind of lays out the plan, but then the way that the structure is made, it has a lot of different little pieces that people are doing. When they go to volunteer at the recycling center, they're actually building it so that eventually together as a community, we can build this installation that will go into the recycling center that hopefully by then will be even nicer because there's not going to be a bunch of old trash right next to it.
So to me, it seems like someone listening to this, as opposed to getting that feeling of nothing's happening, things are wrong, oh, I got to type stuff. I'm proposing action. You're proposing action. Let's go work together. So it seems like getting involved with the recycling center, that's a phenomenal option. You have the Thursday crew, which is normally 60 plus age group. We're trying to bring the median age down a little bit. Metamorphosis is another one that people can get involved in. Stay tuned. We'll have an episode on that soon. Planting trees at Berguiones and other phenomenal groups that are doing things like that.
Tortuguiones, we should work with Vanessa also. I noticed that the markers on the beach are due now to be kind of refreshed. Some of them have been lost. Remember, Vanessa installed with Tortuguiones every 50 meters the markers on the beach. Maybe it's time to fix them now that the dry season is starting.
Okay, so we've got the recycling center. You've got Berguiones, Tortuguiones. I would throw in there the trail systems. Get people out on the trails.
Volunteer with the trail system for sure. We need people to let us know. We used to have these benches that got rotten. We want to replace the benches and make sure that looks well again. Send us feedback or also participate in this committee. At some point, first thing is to do research, to see what other people are doing, until we can craft a proposal of how we're going to design the trails, the main trail, at least to start. Volunteer in the climate change committee also.
I want to add one more thing to the list. It's teaching the kids are the people from here and providing an education systems or an outlet for them. And here's what I'm referencing. Mm-hmm. We've talked about this before many times. We're gone from an agricultural society into a tourism-based society, and we're not arming the people from here with the education to succeed in this area. And no offense to NCAA, it's wonderful. No offense to everyone. I'm not being mean. I don't know of any community that has more of a focus on trees, monkeys, and animals and turtles than where we are right now. And again, I'm on record fully saying we are not doing enough for the people from here.
I agree.
If they can't get a job and they don't have the skill set to participate in the community, that's why people like you from San Jose have to come in and fill those roles, and people like me from elsewhere come in and fill those roles. And this is, again, part of why I'm doing the podcast. I want to start ringing that bell. And over the next year or two, I'm going to start getting really vocal about that. Like I think there's a forgotten generation, and we're experiencing it right now. And there's only so long you can do that before I only know this because I've been involved with security for so long, but we have a couple areas around here that have pretty significant drug issues.
Yes.
And when you have a lack of education, a lack of opportunity, that leads to crime, that leads to all these things, and that steamrolls. And maybe when a kid's 12 to 18, they could just do a couple surf lessons on the side. But what happens when that 18-year-old kid's a 36-year-old?
Yes.
And a 45-year-old? And like we could be staring down the barrel of real potential issues. And I think we can avoid them if we arm the people from here. And I'm obviously, to anyone listening, I'm not talking about Plata or Guiones. There's not much of a local populace there.
There's 7 public schools in Nosara.
Yeah, and I would like to get behind that.
You'll be happy to hear about this, Rich, and this is kind of outside of the NCAA, because the NCAA, as you say, it's pretty much an environmental organization, and I think it's important for organizations to focus to be effective and efficient, right?
Sure.
So it might be outside of the focus of the NCAA, but I know because, through my Harmony hat, I work for the Harmony Hotel. We have been doing a lot of collaboration with the Guardians of Nature program that was started by Jessica Sheffield.
Big shout out to Jessica.
Big shout out to Jessie. And Jessie and I have been discussing this several times, because what happens is that you have kids going to the public school and they're receiving 4 hours of education per day. Whether you have a kid going into the private school to Del Mar, Casa de las Estrellas, El Limar, and they're getting at least 8 hours. And, since you are 6 years old, the division, the gap starts widening right there. The moment that you have some kids going, double the amount of, so how are they going to compete? And so with Jessie, we've been constantly talking about this, because, her focus has been a lot into environmental education, and that is great, but we need to also address the fact that the level of public education in these rural areas is not as good. And it can be better. There's public schools in San Jose that are quite good. I'm a product of public education, and I'm proud to say that I graduated from a public high school. I went to the public university. It can be better. And so Jessica has been working on a proposal within her Guardians of the Nature movement, that it's specifically to address that issue, that we need to improve the level of education. And for that, she's been working with, for example, the teachers, creating materials so that, the teacher have a curricula approved by the Ministry of Education of what they need to teach, but usually they don't have resources to teach about that. So imagine you're a teacher, you just came from giving lessons to, 30 kids, because you probably have, 30 to 35 kids that you have to address, watch, and then you have to come home and plan for the lessons that you're going to be giving the next day. So a teacher's job is it's not done the moment that they're done giving lessons. They have to go back home and plan. So what Jessie through Guardians of Nature has been doing is she has been creating lessons for teachers so that they can teach the curricula that they need to cover with a backbone of environment through all their lessons. So it could be a science lesson, it could be a social studies lesson, it could be a Spanish lesson, and there's always a little bit of environment or sustainability thought through it, but it's covering the curricula. So what's that doing is that now teachers have resources in Spanish, because there's not many resources in Spanish, where they can easily, in a creative way, teach a lesson to their kids.
That's fantastic.
It's really cool. Another area that she's incorporated to the project is making the school boards of the schools, of the public schools, stronger. So, school boards, I think it's very similar to the US. You have the principal and then you have the school board, and the school board is the one who manages the budget for the school. The school boards are very powerful in Costa Rica, but a lot of them don't know that. And also something, we were going around on a list that what you can do, become a part of a school board. It's not that hard, and people tend to think that only parents of the school can be parents can be part of the school board. That's not correct. Anybody in the community that wants to can join a school board. If the school boards are strong, they're a great partner to the principal of the school. If you have a good principal. If you have a bad principal or a bad teacher and the school boards are strong, the school boards can do something about it. So it's so important for the school boards to understand what's their potential in order and the role to play in order to improve the level of education of these schools.
That's all really good stuff.
Bring Jessie. She'll tell you more about it.
I've had her on before and I really enjoyed it, but I probably need to invite her back for an update because
the movement has changed a lot.
Force.
The movement has changed a lot. She signed a cooperation agreement with the Ministry of Education. The Ministry of Education was here a couple of weeks ago, and she is, bawling about the whole Guardians of Nature and the lessons and everything. She signed a cooperation agreement with the environment, and that will increase the level of coverage of the program. It can potentially go to all the public schools of Costa Rica, which would be amazing.
It can go around the world.
She already has a lot of people downloading her materials in Spain and in South America. So for sure, bring her.
Something to me one time. I'll probably never forget it. It was during one of her episodes. We were talking about Nosara area, and she was explaining how in all the past with the recycling center, trying to educate the adults around here wasn't really working. But when they started educating the children taught the adults. Mm-hmm. It was backwards, and that kind of opened her eyes. And then one thing led to another. Then she kind of moved out of what she used to work on between Del Mar scholarships and just all of the massive things that she did there. She said, the movimiento, this is me. Like, this is where I'm going. I'm going to dedicate myself to this. And I was like, wow, you might reach a lot of Costa Rica. And she's like, Rich, I'm going to reach the world. And I was like, I think she meant that.
Yeah. And she's going to do it.
Right. But her courage, this nice, sweet woman who does great things, I didn't expect like that power, like her, to have that commitment, and she did, and that's inspiring me.
Oh my God! Well, I was with Jessica in this Cruza meeting that Cristiana spoke, and after she scared the shit out of everybody with climate change, and she told us there's hope and that we all need to do our part. Something that she said that really stuck with me was that we have to be optimists and stubborn. That's it. We have to be optimists that this can be done, that we can change. Because I didn't finish it, actually. We need to cut our carbon footprints by 2030 in 50% and keep cutting them until by 2050, we're only producing 5% of what we were producing right now in carbon. So it is a big challenge. And everything that we set to do, it's not always going to be successful. So we need to be stubborn and, optimist and stubborn. That's it. Believing that it can happen and especially when you're working with government, be stubborn. If this doesn't go well, then let's go on another path and keep finding until we find the way. And if you put out a project out there, from the NCAA, for example, and people don't like it, then let's put another one, because it's so easy to just give up. And frankly, at this point, we cannot afford to give up.
It's always a pleasure to talk with you, Kuki.
Thank you, Rich.
I stopped calling you Galleta. I figure I had to, now that we're talking in front of everybody.
Can I still call you Ricardo?
Yeah, if you want to. Okay. Everyone else around here calls me Rick. You can't say, what is it? CH, Rich? Is that a hard sound to make?
Not really. Chavez, we have, it used to be on the ABCs. A, B, C, Che, D. They took it out after. So Che, it's the CH. It was a letter.
Oh, well, we'll call
My mom
whatever.
learned it like that.
I'm glad you came in. Good luck this high season.
Thank you.
I imagine we'll be talking here pretty soon, but if I don't talk to you for a couple months, let's hope that 2020 is a smoother year than 2019 and a lot of good stuff happens.
Please.
Thanks.